Now, the Nigeria Governors Forum, that was initially yesterday, said the 60,000 naira minimum wage proposal of the federal government is not sustainable and cannot fly. They said this will simply mean that many states will spend all their federal allocation on just paying salaries with nothing left for developmental purposes, and a few states will end up borrowing to pay workers every month. The NGF said this is not in collective interest of the country, and that's including workers. The governors appealed that all parties involved, especially the labor unions, consider all the socioeconomic variables and settle for an agreement that is sustainable and fair to all other segments of the society who have legitimate claim to public resources. The forum urged all parties to consider the fact that the minimum wage negotiations also involve consequential adjustments across all cadres, and that's including pensioners. Now, meanwhile, the chairman of the Southern Progressives Forum and governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, said the Tripartite Committee is close to having a harmonized figure as minimum wage. He spoke after all parties went on consultations aimed at arriving at a figure.
The private sector and the government side have agreed on a figure based on what they term as a figure that they can afford. While the Nigeria Labour Congress is also looking at other indices to say that they recommend, if for any reason it can be approved, the sum of 250,000. The whole thing is that, like I said while I was talking to NTA, that the Tripartite Committee does not have a power of approval. It's just to recommend.
Right. And we were able to engage the critical stakeholders involved in the conversation. And at the end of the day, out of the three parties involved in the Tripartite Committee, both the organized private sector, the government, and organized labor, we met, and the two parties have already agreed to go with 62,000. And then, as at yesterday, the labor insisted on 390,000. They have come down to 250,000. In any event, among the three parties, two have come together to be the majority.
We had to calm down. Initially we started from 615,000 naira, but we moved close to 150%, precisely about 146% from our initial submission. And today we are making a recommendation of 250,000 naira to Mr. President for onward transmission to the National Assembly. So that is where we are today.
It's issue of three people negotiating, and you don't expect them to come in one day and just agree, because there are certain indices that you have to take into consideration, and there are certain things that they are also looking at. And then having come to this end, I believe that we have to move forward.
I have two gentlemen joining me in the studio to discuss the latest revelations. The Vice Chairman of the Lagos chapter of NLC, Olabisi Idowu, and an international finance and economics analyst, Mukhtar Mohammed. Thank you both for joining us. Interesting developments with the new minimum wage, as it were. But let me begin with Mr. Idowu. I want to be sure that the figure you have received, has that been communicated to you? What is the latest figure that you have coming from the federal government?
Well, while at home, I can say 62,000 naira.
Is what has been communicated. So that has been communicated.
It has not been communicated to us. We are seeing it. Our leaders are talking about it. It has not been communicated to us. But all Nigerians have heard about it. It's not a hidden news again.
Okay, so we just want to be sure that that's the figure that has been communicated. But where does this leave Labour in this whole conversation?
You said what?
Where does this leave Labour? Because Labour is saying 250,000. They have now dropped from 494,000 naira to 250,000 naira. But the state governors, who are the ones that would pay the bulk of this, are saying that no, it's 62,000 naira they can pay. So where does this leave Labour?
Well, what I would just say as regards this issue of a minimum wage, the government, they are not being sincere at all. Ab initio, we presented 1 million naira. From 1 million to 16 and 15. From that one, from 494 from 390 something, and now to 250. Look at the gap when the government are moving 2,000, 3,000, 1,000 is an insult. Coupled with the inflation growth in Nigeria today, 60,000 naira. Well, I can call them a jester of the year, but we are waiting. It's not acceptable.
All right, so let me bring in Mukhtar to the conversation because, you've heard him. He said that the jester of the year. Some people will also say, look, because I've heard people say that 250,000 also is not realistic. I've heard people talk about it. That whether it's 9,350 or 350 or 494 or 250, none of them has been realistic. So what do you also make of these latest figures, whether from the federal government or from Labour?
I think maybe the government have not really come out to really be sincere and open and be frank in the negotiation table. Until Labour went on strike, I think the government were not being fair. They were not taking this discussion very, very serious until when Labour decided to go on strike. Maybe the government felt they might not embark upon the strike. They didn't have the sympathy of Nigerians or that. Because again, let's look at both sides. 250 as today is not realistic. That's the truth. For the private sector is involved. There's a side that's going through their own challenges, high interest rates, subsidy removal, FX volatility, companies are shutting down. So that's for the organized private sector. And when you talk about national minimum wage, you are saying that is the minimum. Every Nigerian that is working, the security, let me say, the minimum should be maybe the office clerk or whatever. That's the minimum to be his wages. So there will be a challenge in that point. Now, to the government side, moving from 48,000 to 50,000 to 53,000 to 58,000 to 60,000 to 62,000, it doesn't show seriousness. And Labour is coming and bringing out the figures. Until Labour threatened to go to strike, that's when the Minister of Finance came up with a figure that is going to cost the government such amount to be able to pay Labour what they want. And I'm sure when the president gave him the ultimatum to come up, I probably have different variables that he must have presented to the president. I don't think he just told the president we can only afford 62,000. I'm sure there are other figures he must have presented to the president. So they have to look at it holistically.
But this figure is not even coming from the president, because the president this is from the state governors.
The state government
has said that he was committed to above 60,000.
62,000 is above 60,000.
The state governors had even said they could not even.
The 62,000 is above 60,000. So my challenge is the governors were never involved in the negotiation. The state governors, they were never involved in the negotiation. And you see, when you look, let me give you an example. Some states are already committed to paying 70,000. State like Lagos State, Edo State even if you say it was political, they are committed to pay 70,000. Then look at the federal level. Minimum wage is 30,000. Then you are paying 35,000. So if you add, the name they call it allowance or whatever, if you add that, already 65,000. So now, how do you now go to them and say you want to pay them less than 65,000? And remember that 65,000 was just a short gap measure. So we need to come clear. For me, 250,000 is high. The current economic challenge might not be able to take that. But again, on one hand, you look at the expenditure, what you read in the news, what comes out. Of recently, we were made to understand that all state government, even in the first year in office, they spend almost $1 trillion. Refurbishment of cars, buying of new cars, sitting allowances. Just yesterday, the president was commissioning the new VP resident. The minister said it cost them $22 billion. So when you look at all those things, and the civil servants know some of these numbers more than you and I know, because sometimes they are the one that prepares this budget and see all these things. So when we're beginning to say we want them to take this amount, they also must see the sincerity from your own side that you are bringing down your own apathy, and cost of living. Now, let me give an example. The judiciary, the chief judge and other judicial workers, their pay have been jacked by 300%. 300%. It has passed through, the House has approved it. It's the same market, the same place these people are. Judicial workers, that means the least judicial workers is receiving 300%. So when we try to do things, but you say this thing, and it's just like when you employ somebody. I was telling somebody yesterday, in the private sector it happens, depending on negotiating power or who brought you in, determine how much you're going to receive. So it's not becoming like that. If the judicial workers are getting 300% hike in their own, and the other sector, the other workers are still struggling to get even 100%. There's disparity. It's just like what we have now in electricity, where you have the band A, band B, band C. So I'm a businessman. If I want to supply light, power, I will supply to band A because they are paying me more. So totally that means there's already discrimination on that part also. So government must...
Now, as we speak, I was speaking to someone earlier who had said that, look, ever since her area has not even gotten power since it was restored. And so I'm guessing because one of the electricity workers did say on one of our programs, Beyond 100 Days, that those who are on Band E, it will take time for their power to be restored. So I was just trying to buttress that point of view.
And I have people that are in Band A, and have told me that their light does not blink. Even if it blinks within the next 5 minutes, it's back.
Well, let me bring in Comrade Ido back into the conversation. You relaxed the strike. That's the language that Labour used. Some say suspended, but Labour said it's relaxed. If the government now insists, because now the buck stops at the table of the president, if there is no shift from the figure, what then happens? Because I know that there's supposed to be a meeting. Labour said it will meet. I think the NEC will meet and then to come up with a decision. So if the NEC meets and then is not acceptable, what happens? Are you going to say, oh, let's get back to the strike? What happens next?
Actually, it's not strike. What we did last time, we withdrew our services, and that will happen. Then we are not agree, and you cannot agree. You listen to Comrade very well. See, the level of inflation in Nigeria today, it's what I said ab initio, that they are jesters of the century. If you look at those things, they are not sincere enough. Even though no governor in this country today can say they cannot pay that money. And what we are waiting for, 3 digits number. That's what we are waiting for. Anything less that, we are not going to take it. Ever before the arrival of the new government, if you check what they are getting as allocation from the federal government, it's triple this time around. It's triple. What I was saying, I never said before. But they enjoy siphoning our money, lavishing it anyhow, and they are trying to kill the egg that laid the golden egg. You can see what they did again. They know what they are doing, the collaborators. Increasing certain people 300%. And what we are asking for is just a peanut. And they are telling us they cannot pay it. And if the federal government could look at it critically to use 90 billion for some people to travel out of this country, what are we saying? They have to look inwardly and outwardly very well this time around, though. I believe the pepper, they will not be able to smell it. Look at them all. Just only 3 out of House of Rep rejected SUV. What I was saying, all of them, they are there. What I can say they are doing that house now is jamboree. They don't have the interest of Nigerians at heart any longer. And they believe nobody could checkmate them. So all of them, they feel very well on their comfortable of their soul, enjoy themselves, and nothing will happen. And we are languishing in the object of poverty in Nigeria. The workers are not happy. The Nigerians are not happy. And you could see it again. The issue of electricity. The federal government come on board to brought in what we call a class system. So if you are not in Band A, you are not in Nigeria. You don't have the authority or right whatsoever to enjoy the supply. Imagine that.
That started in the Buhari administration.
No. As at that time, they are doing it, this is an estate, if you can pay for this, we come and give you. You know, as at that time. But now it has been legalized openly now by the ABC and said, we don't want that. That's our apartheid system. We don't want that in Nigeria. And the only the only people that enjoy Nigeria now. Let me tell you something. If you move around in this country today, Nigerians are crying. You are not happy. Too much on us. Hey, please help me tell the federal government, when they are coming on board, we believe we are waiting for the hope. But this is not the type of hope we are waiting for. And they should allow us to breathe. They should remove that leg. That leg is on our neck. We can't breathe any longer. It's too much.
So I heard you say that anything less than 3 digits, you wouldn't accept it. So anything less than 100,000 naira is unacceptable to Labour.
I didn't say 100,000 naira.
No, you said 3 digits.
3 digits.
So 3 digits starts from 100,000 naira. That's what I mean.
Yeah, above. So let me tell you, the money we are talking about now, if you look at it critically, in terms of comparative analysis, how much is in dollar? Go around the whole West African country, not the whole one now, all West African country or the whole Africa. We are the least paid in Africa, and we call ourselves a giant of Africa. When we have all the resources in abundance, then we are wallowing in abject poverty. Enough is enough. They should talk to themselves. What happened? Last time that we do ourselves is a child play.
So to what extent are you willing to go? Because you said, I want to quote you, you said they will smell the pepper this time.
Yes, now.
What does that mean? To what extent are you willing to go?
If they have smelled one now, another one is coming, they are going to spell. Even though the SDF, that one is trying to give us a name, which I don't believe, especially himself, a caliber of that personality. In the realms of affairs of administration of federal government, saying such a thing, that what we did is illegal. No. It's an understatement. So we do our services. Okay, we should continue to cry in the dark and be dying so that all of them will be enjoying the wealth of this nation. We are the one. Labor create wealth. If they don't know, we are the one. Create those money. They are laughing anyhow. Enough is enough.
3 digits is what I mean.
I for one, I've always said that sincerity is the bedrock of negotiation when you are going to negotiation. If the government is going to come to the negotiation table with Labour, they must be very clear on what they can afford. And then if you go beyond this is what will happen. If we have to do this, we have to do that. And sometimes when Labour say things like that, if you said, okay, you gain 100,000, or you say you want to go above 150, then you say, okay, the consequence is that we may have job losses because we'll not be able to. So those are the ways you come to negotiate. You let them see the bigger picture. Because inflation itself, realistically is above what you are giving us. Because if you say inflation is 34%, food inflation is 40%. So you can make them understand, okay, we've moved this thing by 100% or 100 and something percent. Now, that's what we call structural negotiations. Now, structural negotiation will have to do with government taking bites of their own revenue to be able to keep, even if it's for 6 months or for 1 year. What are structural negotiation or structural things that you do? You can say, okay, you know what? For the next 1 year labor, while we try to fix the economy, while we try to bring down inflation, your money will not be taxed. We are going to pay you this amount. And if you add it that you are not taxed, that means you are earning. It's not rocket science. You go to the table, you don't just go with one.
But that's at the federal level, because, you know, again,
even in the state level.
Let's talk about the state level.
Like he said.
Because when we know that sometimes federal government, especially with the palliatives, when government says we want to do this, and this is, you know, let the state also do this, and we have sent the resources to the state. When it gets to the state level, almost as if nothing is happening. You see, you know, a few motion and movement here and there, and if maybe a day or two, and then, you know, it looks like something has happened.
Because the state government is political. the state government looks at, they want to oil their political structure. If you don't belong to the ruling party of that, when the food palliative are coming, you won't have it. If you, even in a state that the ruling party and the opposition party is the ruling party in the center, sometimes they pass those things through the opposition rather than through the state government. Now, when we talk about palliative have never helped anybody. And palliative will not help anybody in the long run. Look, with all sincerity of purpose, the state government and the local government revenue since Asiwaju Bola Tinubu came to power has tripled. Because of what? Because of one single decision he took, the removal of subsidy. Before now, you see state accountant, state commissioner of finances and accountant general complaining that they are removing our, shorting our money because of subsidy. Nobody is saying that again for the past 1 year. Now, why is the impact not being felt by the people? Because the state government and the local government are just, I don't know what they are doing with the money. Because there have not been any meaningful development or job creation for the people with the type of federal allocation you are receiving. Now it's time to pay the minimum wage. You've sat on the fence. Remember that this negotiation has been up for like 3 months or 4 months. The state government are supposed to be represented. They
were represented. So they attended one, and I think they sent representative once. I don't know if they represented.
Why is the chairman of the Nigerian Government Forum now always available?
So I just want to, so before I get back to Comrade Udo, I just wanted to take again what they are saying. Okay, so they are saying that, look, they don't want to spend the allocation on just paying salaries. There are other, with nothing left for development purposes, that a few states will end up borrowing to pay workers every month. What do you make of that argument?
They should begin to cut their excesses. They don't need 5 sirens. They don't need to send people on Hajj. Look, the state governments, you see, we concentrate too much on the center.
And not just Hajj, there is also the one for Christians as well. Just to
the same thing. Yeah, I'm not saying. We concentrate so much at the center. What we see, the state governors are the most powerful people. The local government are supposed to be the grassroots that really people need to see development. The president has given them more funding for developmental projects, but it seems not to be happening. You begin to ask yourself, is it the same allocation that we are seeing from the state government that we are seeing in the FCT? Because of the kind of developmental project we have seen come up on FCT by the current minister for FCT, which are more like a state governor of FCT. Why are we not seeing that in the states? And some of these states even receive more than Federal Capital Authority. And you see the kind of roads they are constructing. So we need to see the labor, when the labor are saying we want this, they know what they are saying. I gave you a figure that came out last week. That government has spent over 1 trillion, almost $1 trillion for 1 year. And I'm sure if you cumulatively put the amount that laborers are asking for from all these states, it's not up to $1 trillion. See, we must begin to look at what we want to do. Why were you elected? Is it for yourself or for your people? I, for one, don't think, and I say it with all honesty, I don't think labor was realistic at the beginning. What is negotiation? If somebody that was asking you 1 million came to 4 something, now they are even saying 250, that tells you that it's all about negotiation. Let's begin to look at structural negotiation. If government cannot afford, look, I've said it before on many programs here on China, that government need to take a bite of their revenue.
I'll come back to that, because some people have said, look, there has to be, the national economic burden has to be shared. across board. And I'll come back to that conversation. But let me bring in Comrade Doe back into the conversation. Some people have also argued that, look, the 62,000 naira you get is better than 100,000 naira or 250 that is on paper that you don't get. And we've seen that even with the 30,000 naira minimum wage, where some people did not even get that amount at all. So, I mean, what do you make of that argument?
May I say it's an ignorance of knowledge. You know what is on ground now? I've said it. The governors can...
All right.